Welcome to the deep dive. We're your shortcut to making sense of, well, the incredibly complex world of threat intelligence.
It definitely is complex.
And today, we're not just chasing the latest big hack headline. We want to dig deeper.
Exactly.
We're looking at the global cybersecurity scene in 2025 to figure out why breaches seem so reliable, why they keep happening.
Right. It's about moving past the flashy stuff. We need to focus on the systemic flaws and crucially, the human factors that attackers are getting really good at exploiting.
Making these breaches repeatable, predictable.
And scalable, terrifyingly so. It feels like the attackers are really refining their process, almost guaranteeing entry if they try hard enough.
Which makes the intel we're looking at today so vital. We've got quite a stack.
We do.
Incident response data from Unit 42, really specific technical analyses on vulnerabilities, SharePoint, Tomcat, those Ivanti VPNs, and also some pretty pointed critiques on government policy, accountability, and, well, that whole blame the user thing that drives me nuts.
Yeah, it's frustrating, isn't it? But pulling all this together gives a clear picture. Whether the attack is super sophisticated or surprisingly simple, the most reliable way in, it's still exploiting human trust.
Okay, let's jump right into that then. The human angle. We focus so much on 0 days, fancy malware, but social engineering, still king.
Absolutely. The stats are frankly stunning. Looking at a big chunk of incidents, May 2024 to May 2025. Get this. 36% started with social engineering.
36%.
Wow.
Wow. So more than 1 in 3 successful attacks began by tricking a person, not breaking code.
Precisely. And it's not just, mass phishing emails anymore. That's key.
Right.
A big slice of that 36% involved what you'd call high-touch tactics, things that aren't just blast emails.
Like what specifically?
Well, SEO poisoning, manipulating search results, fake system prompts popping up to steal credentials, and direct, often aggressive manipulation of help desks, calling them up, pretending to be someone else.
The direct manipulation, it feels bolder.
It is. And faster. Look at groups like Muddle Libra. We saw one documented case, where an attacker went from initial access, just a social pretext, maybe a phone call, to full domain admin rights.
How long?
Less than 40 minutes.
40 minutes. Seriously.
Yeah. And here's the kicker. They only used built-in system tools. No fancy malware needed. Just abused identity systems, human workflows. Bang. They were in.
Okay, 40 minutes to own the kingdom. That speed is, well, it's terrifying. But what allows that? It can't just be users being tricked, right? The system has to be failing somewhere.
Oh, absolutely. It's fundamentally systemic. Attackers hit 3 main weaknesses again and again. First, over-permissioned access. People just have way more access than they actually need for their jobs.
Standard problem, unfortunately.
A huge one.
Yeah.
Second, gaps in behavioral visibility. Security teams either don't see the weird activity or they see it and think, oh, that's probably fine. They misclassify it.
Right, too much noise, maybe.
Partly. And third, unverified user trust in human processes. Think about help desks, identity recovery. The procedures themselves rely on trust, and attackers exploit that trust directly. They're hacking the organization's logic, not just its code.
And this direct line to human manipulation, it connects straight to the biggest financial nightmare fuel out there.
Right.
Ransomware.
Absolutely. Look at Scattered Spider. They are like the poster child for this. Super aggressive social engineering, phishing, SIM swapping, those help desk scams we mentioned.
They do it all.
They specialize in getting that initial foothold by exploiting people. But then typically they don't actually run the ransomware themselves. They partner up.
With ransomware as a service groups.
Exactly. Like Dragon Force. Scattered Spider does the hard part getting in, and they hand off access to the Reyes guys who deploy the encryption and handle the extortion. It's a specialized, efficient pipeline.
So, okay, humans are the weak link. Attackers can get domain admin in under an hour sometimes. What happens when you throw AI into this mix? That feels like pouring gasoline on the fire.
It really is a double-edged sword, this AI thing. For attackers, it's a massive accelerator. Generative AI is making social engineering campaigns much bigger, much more realistic.
How so?
Well, you can use AI to craft super personalized lures, maybe using specific company jargon that's scraped from somewhere. You can clone voices. Imagine getting a call that sounds exactly like your CEO.
Oh, wow. For callback scams.
Right. And AI can even handle live interactions during impersonations now, making them much more convincing than a static script. It just ups the success rate dramatically.
And I guess it speeds up the planning, too. Less homework for the attacker.
Definitely. It cuts down that initial recon and planning time, which, puts even more pressure on the defenders. Their window to catch something shrinks.
Okay, so offense gets AI-powered speed and realism. How are defenders fighting back with AI? Is it keeping pace?
It has to.
Hmm.
AI is becoming really the essential backbone for modern defense,
Mm-hmm.
especially for analysis and prediction. There's just too much data flying around for humans to handle alone.
So it sifts through the noise.
Exactly. Processes huge volumes of data, spots tiny anomalies a human analyst would likely miss, and helps predict threats. It frees up the human teams to focus on the bigger picture, strategy, complex response, not just routine log checking.
Are there concrete examples, tools that are actually out there making a difference?
Yeah, definitely. Google's got this agent called Big Sleep. Its job is basically to hunt for real security flaws in big open source projects before the bad guys find and use them. Proactive hunting.
That's smart. What about after an attack happens? Forensics.
That's where tools like TimeSketch come in. It's being beefed up with Gemini capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
Think of it like an AI system for forensic investigators.
And does that help?
It can automatically do a lot of the initial grunt work, sifting through logs, building a basic timeline of what happened. It drastically cuts down the time it takes for a human analyst to understand the scope of an incident.
Getting that initial picture quickly is huge. What about insider threats? AI helping there.
Yes. There's a tool called FACAD, stands for Fast and Accurate Contextual Anomaly Detection. Google's been using it since, 2018 for insider threats.
And how does that work? Is it just looking for known bad behavior?
No, and that's what's interesting. It uses something called contrastive learning. Basically, it doesn't need to be trained on data from past attacks.
So how does it find threats?
It builds a baseline of what's normal activity for a user or a system, and then looks for deviations anomalies. It contrasts current behavior with expected behavior in its context, rather than just matching known bad signatures.
Huh. That feels like a different way of thinking about detection, not just is this known bad, but is this just weird?
Exactly. More about identifying the abnormal, less about relying solely on past intelligence.
But doesn't that risk generating tons of false positives? Alert fatigue is already a massive problem.
That is the challenge, absolutely.
Yeah.
Making it work relies on that contextual part.
Yeah.
It's not just that something weird happened, but why it might be weird given the user, the time, the specific action. Refining the AI to reduce that noise is where a lot of the development effort is focused.
Makes sense. But even with the best AI defense, attackers are still finding ways in through simpler technical flaws, right? They're not all relying on AI yet.
Oh, definitely not. Their adaptability is key. They are incredibly agile when it comes to jumping on existing vulnerabilities. We saw this clearly with Microsoft SharePoint flaws like CVE 2025-53777.
But what was the group doing there?
Activity tracked as CLCRI 1040 overlaps with Storm 2603. What stood out with how methodical they were, they had a static list of targets. They'd probed the SharePoint server's first reconnaissance before trying the exploit.
So targeted, not just spraying everywhere.
Right, focused. And they showed real agility in their tactics, too.
How so?
Initially, they were dropping these custom .NET modules, probably to steal cryptographic keys like the machine keys. Pretty specific goal. Then, they suddenly switched to using a simpler web shell payload. But as soon as security researchers started blogging about that specific web shell,
I switched back.
instantly,
Right.
they reverted right back to the .NET modules to stay under the radar. They're watching the defenders, reading the public reports, and adjusting their tools in near real time.
Wow. That's a fast feedback loop. It really is cat and mouse. And it's not just Microsoft stuff, right?
Yeah.
Standard applications have issues too.
Oh, yeah. Apache Tomcat had a nasty one, CVE 2025-24813. This exploited a specific configuration you had to have the session persistence feature turned on.
Okay, so a precondition.
Right. Then the attackers use a two-step process involving deserialization. They'd upload a malicious file using an HTTP request, kind of staging it. Then they'd trigger it with a simple GUT request that included a special session cookie pointing to their malicious file.
It sounds complex, but elegant in a way, exploiting a caching mechanism.
Exactly. And then there's Apache Camel, CVE 2025-29891. That one was almost embarrassing.
Why embarrassed?
It was a filter bypass. There was a mechanism meant to block certain malicious headers from getting through. But the filter was case sensitive.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So attackers just changed the capitalization of the header. Instead of, say, camelx command executable, they think camelx command executable. Different case. Filter doesn't catch it. Boom, potential remote command execution.
Just because of case sensitivity. Wow. Okay, so whether they're tricking people, exploiting configs, or finding simple coding errors, the goal is often persistence, right? Staying in the network.
That's usually the aim.
Yeah.
And we see persistent threats still doing damage, like the Prometheus botnet. It's financially motivated minds, Monero crypto
What's
steals credentials.
still around?
Oh, yeah. Its trick is resilience.
Hmm.
It uses a domain generation algorithm, a DGA.
To keep changing its command and control servers.
Exactly. Constantly generates new domains, so it's hard to block. Plus, it has self-updating features. It's built to survive. And in that Ivanti VPN mess, we saw attackers deploying custom web shells, things like Bushwalk, Chainline, FrameSting, really nasty stuff designed specifically to execute commands and bypass any mitigations defenders put in place.
Okay, so the technical battle is fierce, attackers are adaptive. Let's shift to our last big area, policy and accountability. Because if the tech fight is this hard, you'd hope the rules and oversight would be helping, right?
You would hope so. But the sources we looked at paint a picture of instability, maybe even steps backward. There was a significant executive order back in June 2025 that actually reversed some earlier cybersecurity directives from the Biden administration.
Reverse them, like what changed practically?
Well, one of the biggest things was ditching the requirement for government software contractors to do this really strict self-attestation against the Secure Software Development Framework, the SSDF.
Okay, what's a replacement?
Instead, NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, was told to just create a reference implementation. Critics immediately jumped on this,
Saying what?
saying it moves from mandatory proof, basically, to just guidance. It lets contractors kind of checkbox their way through security without really having to prove their code is secure, less accountability.
Feels like that could open the door to the same kind of supply chain issues we saw before, like with SolarWinds, maybe.
That's the fear. And there were other rollbacks, too. Things that affect longer-term security posture.
Such as?
Requirements for federal agencies to start adopting quantum-safe encryption rolled back, which seems short-sighted given the eventual threat from quantum computing.
Right, that needs a long runway.
Exactly. And maybe even more fundamentally, they removed language that explicitly called the Border Gateway Protocol, BGP, vulnerable to attack. And they dropped requirements for agencies to implement specific BGP security methods.
Okay, remind us, why is BGP security so critical?
BGP is basically the internet's map. It directs traffic globally. If it's insecure and attackers can hijack traffic, spy on data, cause huge outages, pulling back on securing it feels like prioritizing, I don't know, maybe ISP convenience over core internet stability.
And that theme of shaky foundations. Didn't we see that with the CVE program too?
Yeah, that was a real moment earlier this year. MITRE's CVE program, which is the central public list of all known software vulnerabilities that everyone relies on.
Everyone. Vendors, researchers, defenders.
Everyone. It had a brief funding lapse. Just the idea that this critical piece of global infrastructure could be unstable, it really highlights how fragile some of these foundational systems are.
So if the foundations are shaky and policies are maybe weakening, what about accountability when things inevitably go wrong? The Cyber Safety Review Board, the CSRB.
Well, there's a big gap there, according to the critiques. The CSRB doesn't have subpoena power.
Unlike, say, the NTSB for plane crashes.
Exactly. Without the power to compel testimony or documents, impartial investigation is really hard. And remember, it was formed after SolarWinds, but it didn't actually investigate SolarWinds. Its reports are often criticized for being too general, offering simplistic recommendations, and not even mapping failures back to existing standards like NIST's.
So it risks being toothless.
More of a study group than a watchdog, potentially.
Yeah.
There's a call for it to be properly empowered.
Okay, and that brings us back almost full circle to the blame the user problem. You mentioned campaigns like Taken 9, telling people to pause before clicking.
Yeah, these kinds of campaigns. Look, they're well-intentioned, I guess, but they're fundamentally flawed and counterproductive.
Why counterproductive?
Because they deflect blame. They put the onus on the individual user to overcome bad system design. Asking someone to wait 9 seconds, the unnatural amount of time, before doing a totally normal action like clicking a link, it's not realistic, and it ignores the real problem, which is that the systems themselves are built insecurely. We talked about over-permissioned access, flawed help desk protocols. Yeah. These things make it impossible for regular people to use systems safely all the time. The focus has to shift from fixing the human to fixing the insecure systems and processes, engineering security in, not layering awareness on top of broken foundations.
So let's try to wrap this up. We've covered a lot. Human trust as the main way in, AI speeding up both attack and defense, attackers being super adaptive with technical exploits, and policy maybe creating more instability. What's the big takeaway here?
I think the synthesis is pretty clear. Real defense isn't just about the latest shiny tech box. It's about building identity resilience. It's about fixing those fundamental human and organizational processes that keep getting exploited. Security Beacon needs to move beyond just user awareness and start treating social engineering as a critical systemic threat centered on identity. That needs continuous monitoring, better access controls, more robust verification that works.
Okay, so we're in this constant battle, cat and mouse, as you said. Attackers will always find some angle, whether it's human logic or a system flaw. If that's the reality, what's the ultimate goal? Can we ever solve cybersecurity?
Well, that leads to what some call the death of solutionism. If you think about it philosophically, perfect cybersecurity might actually be impossible, like mathematically impossible. It kind of extends from Turing's ideas about the impossibility of finding every single bug in a complex system.
So we can't achieve perfect security.
Probably not.
Right.
And since this is so deeply a human problem, a problem of culture, process, upcode, as some call it, not just technology, the chase for some ultimate permanent solution is likely futile.
So what should organizations strive for instead?
Resilience. Building systems and processes that are incredibly hard to break, that detect breaches quickly, and that recover fast. The goal isn't to stop the attacker, from ever getting in, because that's probably impossible. The goal is to make sure the defender or cat wins most of the time. It's about managing risk and impact, not chasing an unattainable perfect state.
A focus on resilience over theoretical perfection. That's a really important pragmatic takeaway for 2025. Thanks for walking us through all this complex intelligence.
My pleasure. Always good to talk it through.
And thank you for joining us for the deep dive. We'll catch you next time.